Welcome back. We'll continue with communication process, communication variables, and some additional related concepts with communication. So in the last lecture, we understood the variables in communication, the characteristics of the variables in communication, and how the variables interact with each other to make communication successful. Now there are some other associated concepts related to the field of communication which affects the communication process, affects the success or failure of communication itself. So what are the other aspects related to communication? The most important aspect that is related to the field of communication in terms of process is feedback. So this is a very critical component in the process of communication. Imagine a situation that I have been communicating to you and absolutely there is no feedback from you at all. You may ask me a question, Professor, how can you expect a feedback from us when you are actually talking? When I say feedback, it does not necessarily mean that you start talking back to me. No, that's not the way I'm looking at. The feedback from you as a teacher, I get the way you are concentrating on my lecture, the way you are intently listening to my lecture. That is, we are talking about a behavioral feedback in an interpersonal communication situation. Imagine a situation that I am giving a lecture and you people are all looking at the ceiling like this, or not at all looking at me, looking at somewhere, or probably you are not concentrating on what I am trying to say. So this, you are looking this side or that side or talking to someone or looking here and there like this disturbs me, because I can easily make out that the class is no more interested in what I am trying to tell them. So attention from your side to what I am trying to tell you or deliver in the form of a lecture is a kind of feedback we are looking at. So feedback in any given communication situation is very, very critical. In terms of mass communication, feedback can be in the form of a letter to the editor which we people write, or probably a letter to the television channel or a radio channel which we try to explain our own views about the programs, etc., etc. But let me tell you, in an interpersonal communication system, communication feedback is critical and it should be instantaneous in nature. Probably in a live lecture classroom, you might raise your hand and say, Professor, I did not understand this concept at all. So what does it mean? That means you are giving a feedback of lack of understanding of some concepts. So why am I interested in this feedback? Feedback is critical in a given communication situation because it helps us to modify the communication content. I go on lecturing, there is absolutely no feedback from your side, either verbally or non-verbally. I assume that whatever I have been telling you is good for you. But honestly speaking, probably you have never understood something. So feedback helps us to modify the lecture or the content. Feedback helps us to modify the way we are delivering the content. Feedback also helps us in modifying the behavioral aspects of the source. So this is how we look at the critical component of communication called feedback. The second concept that is related to the process of communication is the context. Let me tell you honestly, there is no communication that takes place without a context. You may say, I just meet you in the morning and say, hello Professor, good morning. What is the context in it? Or you will go to someone and say, hi, how are you? What are you doing? What's up? This is the kind of language you people use. Is there a context in it? Yes, there is a context. The context is continuous improvement of relationship between us. It doesn't mean that you will forget me or I'll forget you, but every day we communicate with some context in it. But similarly, in any given communication situation, context is very, very critical. And context here is related to the message. That means, what is the context in which a message is delivered to the people? It may be a health worker talking to a group of villagers about health. It may be a teacher delivering a lecture about communication theories or advertising or reporting or editing. Or it may be the chief executive officer of a company delivering a speech to his people. All these communication situations are done in a context. The health worker delivering something to the group of villagers, here health and welfare is the context. The CEO talking to his people, probably business is the context. A teacher like me delivering the lecture is having a context called academics or academic improvement. So context is a critical factor in the process of communication, and definitely when we talk about the different models of communication, context will come back to you, and probably with a schematic diagram here I will explain to you what exactly is the meaning of the word context here. So context is closely related to the message, and all messages are delivered, or most of the messages are delivered in a given context. Nobody talks about out of context. Then apart from context, what are the other things that are important here? The most important aspect associated, again I'm using the word most many times. The reason is the critical aspect of it is selectivity in communication. My God, let me tell you, I have been delivering this lecture for almost 20 to 25 minutes now. I am never under the impression that you have gathered everything. And if a source thinks that whatever has been delivered to the people or the receiver is simply absorbed, I am sure he is not a good source. The reason is, we should not think that people are like sponge to absorb anything and everything that is given to them. Are you people like a sponge? No. You are human beings. You will not absorb anything and everything given to you. The reason is, you have a mental function of yourself. So this is where the concept of selectivity comes in. So in any given communication situation, the entire message is subjected to what is called as selectivity. What is the selectivity we are talking about? There are three types of selectivity which we need to understand as students and teachers of communication. The first concept of selectivity is selectivity in exposure. Now this lecture or the previous lectures may have gone for about 20 to 25 minutes. Do you think you have exposed yourself completely to everything that has been told? No way. Highly impossible. Take for example a newspaper that you may be reading. There are about 24 pages or 30 pages in a newspaper or 32 pages in a newspaper. Are you going to read each and everything right from the top to bottom to the last page? No way. So we are very selective in exposing ourselves. That means we will choose and take only those things that we feel are relevant to us. It doesn't matter whatever is the communication and whatever is the context. So selectivity in exposure is one concept. The second is selectivity in retention, selectivity in perception. So You are exposed to only certain aspects of what is being communicated. That means you are selective in exposing yourself. You are not going to see, listen to everything that is being given. The second is perception. That means you are going to selectively perceive what is being told to you. Of course, we will talk about perception little later on when we are talking about intrapersonal communication and how perception is very critical at the level of intrapersonal communication. So let me tell you, we selectively perceive what is being told to us. And finally, selective retention. That means we will retain only those things that are important for us. So probably in the whole semester, if you are exposed to, say for example, about 60 hours of lecturing, don't think that you are really exposed to 60 hours. You will take only those things which are very important and you expose yourself. That means you concentrate on those things. Then among that, what is being concentrated or what you are concentrating, you perceive only a bit of it. And finally, a very small portion of that is retained as well. Many psychological studies have shown that human retention span is only about 7% of what is being exposed to. So selectivity is a very important concept in the field of communication. So we talk about selectivity in exposure, selectivity in perception, and selectivity in retention.